So, can you do inspection resolution?
Yeah, I'm just sending it to you right now.
Awesome. So, did they do everything you wanted?
No, they did like the three main things and then the up concessions of $4,000, which feels a little short of what we wanted, but my mother's. I just think.
Did we have concessions in the original offer as well?
Yeah.
So like 2,000.
Yeah.
What's the best, have you figured out the best way to do it? I mean, yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, we started doing it kind of regularly, so we would typically, every other, people come in the door, we try to, just as a starting point. I think that works well and flows, but sometimes the conversation just happens to live where one person is going to the people. Right there. So we kind of start that way, and then at the end, goes on what you've been, this one, you pick them up, but they don't shoot the mine. Okay. So you kind of figure the logical at the end. Okay. It's kind of divided up at that point. That's how we did it. We're okay. That sounds good. Yeah. Somebody bring water bottles.
I'll bring in the cave. I gotta bring the cave.
I got that one already. Filled and ready to go.
They gotta be paid, so that's what we're
The requirement. Right, yeah. That's quite the open house for us, and I need to stop by. Okay. All right, 1 second, and I get started, guys, so just let me know. Yeah. No, having sack lunch, ready to go. And sit back here and eat it. Yeah. Casey or me, would you give me a sound check?
I can hear you.
Say again.
I can hear you.
Okay. I don't hear you very well, but I'm not sure how in here I turn up the volume, so.
Okay, I don't really have a lot to say. You're good.
I think that thing's broken.
It might just be on here.
Check me again, Case.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. Count to 10. 1, 2.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I don't think it's changing. It's not changing the volume here either. I don't know how to change the volume. All right. You'll have to shout. Another good reason to be in person. You got it all out? Yeah, I know, but.
Hey, easy now. We can't all make it there in person.
Sometimes there's extenuating circumstances, so. And both of those individuals would fall into that, so I'm good with that. All right, so, hi. What do you want to learn today?
Everything.
Oh, it's gonna take more than 2 hours.
Where, get a little color check.
You wanna learn what?
How to get a little color check.
How to handle a contract. All right, well, we're gonna try that. Here's my question. How many of you are scared to death to get somebody under contract? Oh, It's probably, hopefully, one of those weekends.
Yeah, well, we gave it the old college try,
We did.
it started last weekend.
We did.
So what we learned last weekend is that knowing how to write our contracts is a helpful thing. Okay,
Got to know.
there is a lot to know, right? And one class isn't gonna be enough to get you there, right? So, I just wanna get this done first. Oh, we lost the need before we started, okay. All right, so, hold on. Let me get it set up here. Good start. It's been so long since I've used real PowerPoint, I forgot which buttons to push. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what happens when you go under contract. And in our industry, I want to be super clear on what the words under contract means. Under contract means that, I'm trying to figure out how to sit so I can see everybody. Okay. I guess I don't need my camera on because Zoom I won't see it anyway. Under contract means that the buyer and the seller have come to an agreement and you have an executed contract to buy and sell. Okay? Sometimes we use the words, I'm under contract, and what you're telling me is you got a buyer agency sign. Okay, so first of all, just not that you're not under contract because you are, but when you use those terms in our world, we always say, all right, we got a closing coming, okay? So this class is focused on from the point you go under contract till the time you get to the closing table and a little bit beyond, okay? So this will not become a contracts class, even though I'm going to be using the contract a lot to be able to talk you through this. My goal is, this is called a skills lab. And in a lab, my goal is that you always walk away with something tangible for your business, not just a class that you sat in and listened to me talk for 2 hours. So at the end, it is my goal that all of you will have created the start of the checklists to manage your business from under contract to close. Does anybody want to walk away with those things?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Let's have some fun. So what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about the introduction. We're going to talk about communication rhythm. Okay, super important when you're working with a client always, but just so that they know what's coming and what's happening. I gotta change this view. Hold on a minute. I gotta hide all your beautiful faces. Actually, let me do something really quick. I'm hiding my own first. But oh, I put it right here. I always get confused so much buttons to push. Okay. Now I can see. Okay, so we're talking about communication rhythms. We're going to talk about building checklists, and ultimately it starts with your dates and deadlines of the contract. That's where it's going to start. Then we're going to talk about how to work through this, and we're going to talk about it whether you're on the buy side or the sell side. Because the reality is, it is different depending on which side of the transaction you're working as to what your activities specifically are going to be. We're also going to talk a little bit about the role of a transaction coordinator, as well as my role as your coach in helping you get through these things, right? Lucky Brandon went under contract with the buyer the other day. I saw him. The first thing I said to him is, did you get your inspection resolution today? Right? So all of that. And then we'll do some Q&A. All right, everybody sound good with that? All right. So what happens when you go under contract? So you're gonna go under contract. So the first thing you're gonna do is it's gonna be all about communication. So over time, right, for some of you that have had transactions, right, you'll start to realize you type the same things in the emails all the time. Build templates out of those. So whether I'm on the buy side or the sell side on our team, we have a template that goes out that says, congratulations, you're under contract. Here's what's next. my favorite line when I'm communicating with a client, to always be setting the expectation, here's what's next. Okay, because if you can answer the questions before they ask, it is a much better experience for both of you. Because Jamie, does the client ever call when it's a convenient time for you?
No.
Never. And they're panicked. They're in total panic mode. Oh, because they're freaking out. They don't know what to expect. Right? So when you go under contract, so Jen, when you go under contract, the first time, what happens from the coaching department?
You get an email.
You get multiple emails, might be smart plans, right? And we're telling you, here's where you've probably been, here's probably where you are, and here's what's coming. Right? So that way you're always knowing how to communicate with your clients as well. Okay? I know Christy was using those one morning on the phone, and Karen's like, what are you reading from? Right? And she was trying to figure out what I meant, right? You're gonna do the same thing for your buyers and sellers, always telling them what's coming next. Our first email, when we go under contract, is probably the longest one we write, because we're talking about earnest money, inspections, property insurance, and all the things that are coming next. There's a lot that happens in a contract in the first 10 days. So that first email is big, and we're gonna talk about that. Once I'm under contract and I've sent that out, I try and I do this even with my sellers specifically prior to going under contract. I communicate with them every Monday and Friday. At a minimum. Might be just a quick text that just says, hey, here's what's going on this weekend, or hey, no updates since the last time we talked, have a great weekend. Right, but I am calling them, texting them, emailing them, whatever their preferred communication style is. And letting them know what to expect. Okay? You figure out your own timing, right? In the example here, we say maybe if you got the listing side, you communicate on Mondays. If you're on the buy side, you communicate on Tuesdays. Now, when you're actually under contract in the heat of the moment, if you've got a deadline, right? You might have to talk to them on Wednesday, Thursday also, right? But you just want those high level communications, right? The more you talk to them, even if you have nothing to tell them, other than I'm calling to tell you I have nothing new to tell you, makes them much calmer through the transaction and they feel like you're a rock star. Okay? The worst part of a transaction is when you don't know what's coming. Okay, questions on that? Thoughts on that? Okay. Building your checklists. How are we gonna do that? We're gonna start with the contract to buy and sell timelines. Okay, I'm gonna talk to Elizabeth and get some contract classes back on the calendar, because we've got a lot of you that have never been through them. You do have access to contracts classes, though, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's on the PC resource page. If you go to the PC resource page, we have links to the YouTube channels, and we have links to the specific contract classes. So if I'm Christy, and I know I'm taking a buyer out this weekend, and I've already done my buyer agreement, and I wanna make sure that I'm really fresh on how to write the contract to buy and sell, I might go watch that hour-and-a-half class with Margaret. Okay, if I know that I'm working with a potential seller or a potential buyer, I might go watch those contract classes coming up, okay? That contract to buy and sell is gonna drive everything in your timelines, at least the start. Then you can create checklists. I'm going to ask Chris Voorhees to teach the checklists in command. You all don't want me teaching checklists in command, okay? But it is a tool that's in command, right? And the beauty of it is, we get to work the way we work best. Okay, some of us work better with paper checklists. Those are usually the people of the baby boomers like Debbie and I. We're the paper girls, right? But then truly, huh? Oh, you too? Okay.
Yes.
Well, I know Debbie and I do, right? Like Debbie's, I think, you guys will laugh. Debbie's all have polka dots around them. It's super cute. Anyway, but others of you just deal really well with them online. Right? So you guys know your best style of how you work. Build your checklist, right? We're gonna build the framework, but where you keep them, that's up to you. Okay? And then we're gonna talk about how to incorporate some of your own unique touches into those, right? So, working through the main sections of the contract, right? So, first step, congratulations, you're under contract. That's the very first communication that goes out. And by the way, that's what I tell you too. Congratulations, you're under contract. Okay? What am I going to tell the clients? When's the earnest money due? Where is it due? By when? And oh, by the way, if you've got the buyer side, how do they pay it? I had a buyer, I've learned a lot of lessons in 11 years. I had a buyer one time go to their safe, take $5,000 cash out, and took it to the title company. It's not valid money, right? So tell your buyers, this is part of your consultation, but it's also part of this exercise, pay it by a personal check, cashier's check, or wire. If you ever are in a situation where you have a very short close, I don't even tell my buyers they can do it with personal check. I want cashier's check or wire, because a lot of times the title companies want to make sure those checks are cleared. So if you've got a cash buyer and they're closing in 8 days, everything is wire transfer. Okay. We're gonna talk about disclosures, whether you're on the buy side or the sell side, right? There's disclosures that have to fly between the two parties. And then inspections. Getting them scheduled or knowing when they're going to happen and communicating that with your seller. Okay? Breaking things. Connecting everyone. One of the first emails that you get from whoever the title company is, or that you should be getting, is a copy of who's the contacts. So the title company is gonna wanna know who's the buyer, who's the seller, who's the buyer's agent, who's the listing agent, who are the transaction coordinators if they're part of the mix, and what are their phone numbers and emails. The title companies are very good at not sharing your client's emails with the other side. Everything's done, it just says sent by electronic mail. So you don't have to worry about the agent on the other side getting your client's information, contact information. Okay? The lender, so the title company needs a copy of the contract so that they know what it says. And the lender needs a copy of the contract because that's when they go to work. If you're doing a property that has HOA documents, those also need to be delivered. There's multiple ways they can do it, but title's gonna wanna know, are we ordering those for you? Or is the seller going to do it? Okay. Inspections. Oh, you guys. This is probably the most critical part of the transaction, and it's probably the most emotional. Okay? The sellers think their house is perfect, everything works great, there's nothing wrong with my house, what do you mean? The buyers wanna make sure they're buying what kind of house? Perfect. There's no such thing, not even with a new build. Okay? So it's very emotional. It's very emotional because you have a buyer who wants everything fixed. Down to the chipped paint on the corner of a room. And you have a seller who says, it works just fine, I don't need to fix anything. And everything in between. Get ahead of those deadlines so you can manage through the emotions. I don't care if the inspection's not due for 10 days, if I can get the inspector out there tomorrow, I am. Because it gives me time to work with any emotion my buyer might have. On the same token, if I'm a buyer's agent, I don't want to be sending the objection at 11:45 PM on the day of the deadline, and the good old listing agent gets to wake up to the morning to a laundry list of things. You're gonna get a motion from the agent on top of the seller. So you wanna work ahead of these as fast as you can to get past this hurdle. Okay, Brandon, did you find a little emotion as you were working through the inspection on your deal?
Yeah.
A lot of
A
emotion,
lot of emotion.
right? So get ahead of it, okay? So on the inspection, what do the buyers order? So the inspection ordering of it is on the buy side. They can order any kind of inspection they want by anybody they want. The most common inspections we see is a visual inspection who's done by a person who's got knowledge of the overall different working mechanisms of the house, but they're usually not an expert on everything. You might find somebody who used to be a master plumber, so he might be really good at talking about the plumbing, but he knows enough about electrical and roofs to be this thing. Okay, radon. There's some radon classes that I've been seeing popping up in my email, right? Understand what radon is and what the prevalence of it is. Right, but that's a very common inspection to have. The other very common inspection, and please, please, please have your clients get sewer scopes. Unless they're buying a condo on the 5th floor, right? I will tell you personally, I have a sewer line problem that's a construction defect. I bought my house at a time when we were super competitive and we were waiving everything, and I'm like, there's nothing in this house that I'm gonna find that's gonna stop me from buying this house, so I didn't get an inspection. I got about a $7,000 to $10,000 bill in my sewer line facing me right now. So get your clients to do at least the sewer scopes, because you can't see. You can't see them, and even on new construction, we have found sewer lines that aren't properly connected, gross, right? We have found construction debris in them that's causing blockages. Right? Get ahead of it. Those are the most common ones. Your client might be have a lot of allergies. You can do air tests. You can do mold tests. You can do lead-based paint tests. Another one you might want to consider doing more is having tests for meth. They're seeing, what was that stat the other day? Was it like 35% of the houses that are being tested test positive for meth?
For meth?
Methamphetamines.
Yep. Now, you said of the ones being tested, not
Right.
everybody is testing right now.
Is that just in Colorado or in?
I don't remember exactly where the stats, but here's the thing, if they're testing and 35 are positive, what about the other ones that aren't being tested?
Right.
Right.
Even if they're running a 25% positive rate, right?
Crazy.
It is crazy, right? You can have a roofer go out and inspect. If you think that you're gonna have structural issues, the buyer's agent might bring a structural engineer out for the inspection, right? You can do all the things. Yes, Jen?
What kind of things would lead you to suspect like meth, like say like you go at, not every house you're gonna think you're gonna test for meth, right?
I don't know that I can say that anymore.
You think.
And here's why.
Like,
So yes, the day I was showing houses and we found the drug paraphernalia sitting out, that one I probably would have said, yeah, we should probably test. Historically, if I go back to 2015, 2016 timeframes, some of the key indicators were homes that had been under foreclosure, right? Or homes that had been rentals. But I'm gonna tell you, I don't believe that anymore. I had a client who they were more worried about meth than they were radon. So when they bought their house in Greeley, they bought the house from grandma. Grandma had lived in the house for 40 years. It tested positive for meth.
Really?
No, the grandkids.
Oh.
my God. Oh, that's sad.
So I don't know that I can say there's a leading indicator. I think it could be anything.
Yeah. You
I will say that I remember there was an agent that walked in and they were buying a house for themselves, remember this years ago?
Yep.
And they started getting headaches in the house and stuff, and they were like, maybe we'll leave, and maybe we need to test meth.
And it tested really high.
Really.
Oh, wait. In a community that today is a $900,000 community in Arvada.
Farming community,
Yeah,
like just a normal neighborhood that you would think is like, nope, somebody was running a meth out of there.
or they were smoking, like they were
smoking.
participating, right? They may not have been cooking, but they
Yeah.
were participating.
It
Okay,
was super high.
it's up to your buyers. What they wanna test for. That's the end of the day. Who orders it? The client can order it, you can order it with their permission. My TC orders a lot of mine for me. But again, with permission from your buyer, they may have somebody, like one of the buyers we're working with right now the other night. First words out of the mom's mouth is, I have a friend who does inspections. Okay, great. Use who you wanna use, I don't care. My brother has done inspections for me. Right? I would trust my friend who's a general contractor, right? So for me personally, right? So it depends what your client wants to do. What is my role in scheduling as a listing agent as it relates to the inspections? Basically, you just need to coordinate with the seller. Okay, when you're on the buy side, you wanna make sure your client's getting them ordered or you're doing it on their behalf. I really try and let my team order it on behalf of my buyer so I know when it's happening. Who goes to the inspection? Buyer's agent. Who has access to the key? Who's responsible for the house? With a real estate license? Damien would really encourage you to go to the inspection from start to finish. Your buyers, definitely. Now, sometimes they can't. And then, of course, the inspectors. Okay? Your role is that you know nothing. You are not an expert on anything unless you truly have a license that says you are. So if you truly are a master electrician, then you can talk to electrical. But if you're not, then please don't. Now, it's a dance when you're out there, right? So the inspector's going through things. So here's how it works, right? The inspector gets to the house. They usually inspect the outside first. I don't know why. They always do. They start outside. Usually because sometimes they beat me there. Right? So they do the outside first. They get up on the roof. Some of them will use a drone actually to go check the roof. And then they go to the house, they check everything, right? They turn on all the appliances, they make sure they work, they check the HVAC. There is nothing more fun than a good old 90-degree day in July and they're testing the furnace to make sure it kicks. Okay? Air conditioning, it has to be warmer than 65 degrees or they can't kick it on. So that's why in the wintertime, you don't get a lot of AC inspections. But they're gonna check everything. They're gonna take these little devices and plug them into all the outlets and make sure they're grounded correctly and working correctly. And then at the end of the end, there's usually a time when they go through the report with the buyer and you. So if you have a buyer who can't spend 3 hours because it's during their workday, schedule it so they can at least get to the recap. Because if they're at the recap, at least the inspector can take them and show them what they're talking about. Inspections are not just about here's everything that's wrong with the house. It's not a pass-fail system. But it's your buyer's opportunity to learn the pieces of the house. Like, do they know where the main water shutoff is? You know, sometimes those are hidden behind walls because people like finish basements and put little doors. Might be a good thing for somebody to know. Where is the electrical panel? Where is the sprinkler system? Right? So it's a great time for your buyer to learn about the house, no matter how many homes they've owned. Your first time home buyers, critical. If you have a first time home buyer out there, let your inspector know that before you get to the house. Okay, this is the first time these guys have bought a house. They're really nervous. Your good inspectors will know how to handle that scenario and not be a chicken little. And then that's super important if suddenly mom and dad show up. Trust me, mom and dad. Okay. The inspector will go through it. If your client is glazing over like they have no idea what the inspector is talking about, here's where your role becomes super critical. You're asking clarifying questions. You never want to say, oh, that's no big deal. And that's really hard for someone like Stacy to not say that's no big deal because she flips houses and to her, it's not a big deal. But to your buyer, it might be. So she has to ask clarifying questions so that they can come to that own conclusion themselves.
Right.
Make sense? That's your role as the buyer's agent. Buyers pay for it. They have to pay for it before the inspection, they get the report. And then communicating with your buyer and clients throughout that process. If you find something major in that house during the inspection, please call the listing agent right away. If you find a gas leak, please call them. If you find a water leak, please call them. Do not wait 4 or 5 days when they get the inspection objection and you chuckle.
Yeah.
I had it happen. Family, 3 little kids in the house. They did the inspection on Thursday. We got the inspection objection late Monday. I'm talking late, like 9 o'clock at night late. I open it up. Licensed contractor to identify the source of the gas leak by the kitchen stove.
I wasn't laughing at it.
Huh?
I'm like, I wasn't laughing at the gas, like more like the water, like.
Yeah, but you guys think about that, right? Like, there were people, little kids living in that house, right?
Insane.
Yeah, so just let the list, by the way, that will bode well for you if you're pushing things in the inspection objection. Right? If your client, like Brandon's, was really kind of pushing the envelope on some things of what they wanted done, the better you guys are when you find things up front that are a big deal, the more willing they're gonna be willing to work with you. That guy who let that gas leak sit until Monday night, how do you think my seller felt? Yeah. Oh, they were mad. Almost cost them the deal. Okay. Setting expectations is also super important with your buyers as far as, you know, in our current market, we are not focused on cosmetic, we're working on true health and safety. When I get that buyer's agent, if I'm this listing agent and I get that buyer's agent who's really pushing the envelope in that category, like asking for the bathtub to be caulked. I'm setting expectations with my seller that different buyers use different strategies. And oftentimes they'll put a couple of things in there that are throwaway items. So let's focus on the stuff that really matters and not worry about the rest. You gotta manage, remember what, this is the most emotional part, right? You gotta manage them. You gotta help set them expectations, right? The Ryan and Danny, just like a couple of months ago, we had literally the buyer asked us to scrape the popcorn ceiling and to fill the cracks that in the inspection report said were cosmetic and wanted them repainted. No, what they wanted us to do was to do all the cosmetic work for them. They wanted done. So I had to set expectations with my seller that some people will push the envelope and it's okay, we don't have to do it all. Okay? All right, title and any questions on inspection? Titles and HOA. All parties get copies of the title commitments, the tax certificates, and the HOA. You, as the agent, want to look at those things. Again, you're not an expert on any of that. But you do want to look through them to see if there's anything unexpected. Now, I already see you. Margaret, I've never even seen a title commitment. I don't know what's expected or not. Go take the class from Land Title, Title 101. Okay, high level, Schedule B1. These are the things that have to be done in order for the title company to close and give clear title to the new buyer. So on the buy side, there's not a lot of things I need to worry about in there. But on the sell side, all the liens gotta be paid off. I might have to bring in statement of authorities if it's a title or a estate or not a title, a trust, sorry. If it's an estate, I might need a copy of the certified death certificate and I might need to have the seller go get the personal representative's deed. The only thing I'm looking for on Schedule B1 on the buy side is if my client has to do anything. And the only time I've ever had one of these things happen is, I'm gonna change the last name, but you'll get the idea. Lisa and Bill Smith. Do you think there are many people in the country named Lisa and Bill Smith? Do you think they all have excellent credit? No, mine do. So Lisa and Bill Smith, the title company wants to verify they're not the Lisa and Bill Smiths with over $800,000 worth of federal tax liens. Yeah. They call the title company. Hi, I'm Lisa and Bill Smith, the ones that have good credit. What do you need? And then they give the title company additional information like social security numbers and past addresses so the title company can verify that's something. On Schedule B1, that's the only time I've ever seen a buyer need to do anything on B1. Unless they're buying it in a trust and then they need to bring their statements of authority and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Pretty fair, right? Schedule B2, these are the things that the title company is not going to insure them against. So they're not going to insure when the utility company has an easement to go through the property. They're not going to insure if someone has a reservation from the 1800s for any potential minerals. I glance at those mainly because I'm a history buff and I like to go find old stuff. If your client is reading through that, what I tell them as a buy side, all I'm telling them is, if there's something in there you don't understand what it means, call the title company. And let them explain it. Okay? Questions on that? HOA docs. Seller's responsible to get them to the buyer. Buyer's responsible to look at them. What do I tell my buyer to do? I tell my buyer to read through the rules and make sure that they can live with them. If they just adopted a brand new, super cute Saint Bernard puppy, like, aren't they the cutest puppies in the world? And then the HOA has a rule, no dogs over 65 pounds. Are you gonna have a problem? Maybe. So what's gonna go? Are you gonna go find a different house or are you getting rid of the puppy? Okay, the other thing I encourage my buyers to do is to read through the minutes of the meetings. And I read through those too because I'm nosy, I guess. I just find them fascinating sometimes. Usually they're very boring. Right? And that's what I want. I want boring minutes. You're gonna find out that neighbor Jane in this unit is constantly always complaining about blah, 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 blah. In my neighborhood, that would be Lisa. Okay? And that's always good to know, right? Lisa complains about everything. However, it's sometimes you can find out about things that might be coming down the pike. Like you might discover that they are filed an insurance claim over a massive hailstorm. And they're needing to replace all the roofs and all the siding, and they don't have enough money set aside. What could that result in?
Money out of the pocket.
Special assessments.
Special assessment.
And it could be a special assessment that's assessed after you close. Okay, so those are the things I'm looking for. I'm looking for things that are gonna do warnings, right? If I was going to look in my own community, I would have, in today's with where our minutes are, you would find warnings that we're considering a construction defect against our building. I might wanna know that as a buyer. So those are the things I'm looking for as the buyer's agent to just make sure everything's there. On the listing side with HOA docs, I literally go, oh, they got them, and that's all I look at. Like, they got them, done, it's a check in the box. Okay? Questions on title and HOA? Appraisals. Appraisals are ordered by the lender of the buyer. And they will order them sometimes right away, like the minute they get the contract. If I'm a buyer's agent and my buyer is buying a house, like the one that Brandon's buyers are buying, that we knew going in, it's got some stuff. Okay, and if I'm thinking that there's gonna be enough stuff that we're not gonna be able to come to a resolution with the seller. And not only did he have a house with some stuff, but a seller who was already letting us know he was not gonna be easy to work with. I probably would have told my lender to pump the brakes on ordering the appraisal until I got through the inspection resolution. Because I don't want my buyer to spend $600 to $1,000 for an appraisal on a house they terminate on. Now, if they're buying a clean house, then I've got experienced buyers and the sellers have been super great to work with, and I'm not seeing anything that's gonna be a deal killer, then I'm probably just gonna let it happen. One of the questions I do ask my buyers oftentimes at the inspection is, so Jordan, did you see anything here in this inspection that if the seller says, no, we're not going to address it, you would walk away from this house? And if she says yes, no matter what it is, I'm telling the lender to pump the brakes. Okay, if she says no, if they don't fix, this one thing, I'll still be fine, then I'm just gonna let it go. That makes sense to you guys? Like, I'm always protecting my client's money. That's my favorite.
Lenders do have an eye on that too. I mean, I never ordered appraisals until the inspection resolution was done. So I guess maybe it depends on the lender, but the lender has an eye on that as well. Often.
Some of them, when you got a 3-week close, you don't have time,
Right.
right? And we got lenders out there doing 3-week closes. Right, so I don't know if the loan officers are having those fellowship conversations or not, but as an agent, they hired me to be that fiduciary, and I'm not going to rely on some underwriter or some processor at Rocket Mortgage to do
No,
that.
definitely. But it's nice to know that it should be on, like, not Rocket Mortgage, but local lenders and stuff it should be just a backup, like.
Right. But it doesn't always, because I will tell you, I have 2 really good preferred lenders, and there has been more than once that the appraisal was done before we even filed an inspection objection. Who pays it? Buyer guy. Some lenders have them pay it before the appraisal goes out. Some of them build it into the closing statements. It depends on your lender. What is your role as the agent? As the buyer's agent, nothing other than to follow up with the lender and make sure that it's been ordered and that it gets turned in on time and that it came back at value and no condition. If I'm the listing agent, I do like to go and meet the appraisers at the house. So when they get there, all the lights are on, the windows, curtains are all wide open, and it's bright, and it looks just like it did when it was a showing. Because appraisers are human. And if the house, they walk in and it feels pretty, they're going to have a better feeling than if they walk in and it's dark and it's dreary and it's nasty. Okay? So I expect my sellers to keep the house in show shape through appraisal. Every once in a while, one of them decides to move out before we get there, and we deal with it, but we work with it. I do teach a class about an appraisal package. So I meet the appraiser at the house. I'm all about building a relationship with them because what do I want? I want that house to appraise for the purchase price on that house, and so I'm gonna do everything I can to make them want to give it to me. I'm not gonna have them cheat, but I'm gonna want them to like me. Okay, I'm gonna be there and say, do you have any questions about the house? Cause sometimes they do, like I've had them say, when did they remodel that bathroom? Right, yeah, they ask questions, right? They see us as a partner, right? Cause the appraiser doesn't wanna be the jerk who comes in low. They really don't. Right? It's everybody working together. Then in part of my appraisal package, I give them copies of every piece of contract document, contract, counteroffer, any amended sense. I give them a copy of the marketing materials. I give them the comps I use to price the house. If I have notes about the houses, because I went and previewed them while I was waiting to get under contract, I give them their notes because they can't see everything in the pictures. I had one in Alta Vista where the appraiser I know was like, there's no way this house is as good as that one based on the pictures. But what the pictures didn't show was, they said it was a fully updated kitchen. Jamie's heard the story before. I went over and looked at that house. Those kitchen cabinets weren't new, but somebody did a really good paint job on them. But when you opened them up, they were rubbish on the inside. Right? And you know that product that you can paint on a laminate countertop that makes it look like stone? So the pictures looked like it was new cabinets with stone. But they weren't, because I took the time in preparation for my listing to go look at everything that was on the market and had notes. I gave the appraiser that note. Think it helped me? All day long. Okay? That's my role on each side of that fence. What happens if it doesn't appraise? I should let Christy teach this part. You can appeal it, has to be done through the buyer. Usually, I mean, it's gotta be pretty wrong, right? Like the one I had where they forgot to give me credit for the 1-car garage. I was $5,000 under value. And not all of the condos had garages, and how much is a garage space worth? $10,000. Huh, if I have a garage, now my appraisal is $5,000 more than our purchase price. So once we got that fixed, everything was good. So that does become a partnership between the buyer's agent and the listing agent. Cause on the buyer's agent side, I'm calling it up and I'm saying, hey, Jamie, appraisal came in $5,000 short, my buyer would like to have the price reduced. Whether the appraisal's wrong or not, I don't care, I want a price reduction from my buyer, right? On the seller side, I'm like going, I looked at the comps, there's no way that came in light. Jamie, send that over to me, let's take a look at that, see if we can figure out a way to get this to still work. Okay, so you gotta know what to do, so you can appeal them, you can renegotiate, all this stuff, okay? All right. We're gonna talk about checklists, we have checklists. We need to update our checklists, we probably haven't done that for a while. And this literally is set up so that everybody on the team knows once we go under contract, what happens next. Right, and who's responsible for it. So when we built out those initially, right, it was just you and me, and now we've got Andy and hopefully another admin coming on here soon as our businesses keep ramping up, because I'm burying Stacy right now. And so what are some things, who's on first for all of those things? Right? And we build in elements of drop off this. Right? One of the things I want to build into my business, have you guys seen those like branded moving boxes? And have your branding on it? Like, what would it look like if like, oh my goodness, my buyer is under contract and I showed up at their house like 2 days after they went under contract and handed the moving boxes with tape? Right? What would it look like if I know that my seller is in the middle of packing because they're scrambling to get out and pizza showed up at the front door that night? Right? So what are those things that you're gonna build in? We're gonna talk about those. So you get to do your own surprise and delights, whatever those are, right? I'm going to tell you this for those of you that are newer in the room, start small, right? Surprise and delight can be just you show up with a Starbucks one day, right? At the end of the day, it's about your overall service, but as you continue to grow your business, you're gonna find that there's some fun little things to build into there that is an absolute must. Okay? Walkthrough, pre-close walkthrough. Buyer does this. Even if there's a post-closing occupancy agreement, do a pre-close walkthrough. You want to make sure that the home is in the condition or better than it was when you saw it. And you want to verify that anything that was supposed to be done by the seller as part of the inspection resolution was done. Bob did one time on Zoom. And he did it, came into team rally one day, and he literally, at the pre-close walkthroughs, he's going through and he's checking all of the water faucets, making sure that there's still hot water coming out of them, and opening the cabinets underneath and making sure there's not a leak. I did a walkthrough on a new build a couple of weeks ago, and he literally turned on every shower, every bathtub, every faucet, flushed every toilet, made sure that things were still good. Because do things break? They work today and tomorrow they don't. Make sure they still work. Because once your client closes, whose problem is it now? Theirs, right? I like to do the walkthrough the night before. And then I like to do my closings early in the morning. It just works better for my calendar. And so my team knows, like, Margaret wants a 9 o'clock closing. Right? I don't want a 2 o'clock in the afternoon closing if I can avoid it. Some people will do walkthroughs on their way to the closing. My belief in that is, what if something's wrong? You don't have time to fix it. Then what do? You make your buyer buy a house that's not ready? You delay the closing? Right? So you give yourself time that if something happens, you have time to fix it. Closing gifts and closing day. Closing day is so much fun. Right? It's when you get to celebrate with your client, you've gotten them through all of these hurdles, whether it's on the buy side or the sell side. And I would tell you, they're both equally as happy or equally as sad, depending on the scenario, right? Celebrate with your client, right? Get there early. If you're gonna do a closing gift, I've taken them to the closing. I'm starting to think now it's more fun to show up when I have the buyers anyway, to show up at their house like about a week later with the gift. One less thing they have to move.
Yeah.
Right? Do you, right? Talk to your tax professionals. There are tax implications of closing gifts that they will tell you. But just make sure it's something that's memorable. Right? I watched a closing the other day, and she literally gave them a gift card for at home. Will they remember 3 years from now that she gave them that? Probably not. Right? I just bought a fun one. I ordered it from Amazon and it made it the same day. I found out actually at the closing. I hadn't bought a gift yet. I was scratching my head. It was a single guy, didn't know him really well, didn't know what to get him. And at the closing, we had one of those weird ones where the seller and buyer in the room at the same time.
So great.
Oh, fun, pre-COVID. Anyway, I discovered the sellers loved birds. And so one of the big exclusions was all the bird feeders. That started a conversation at the closing table that he's a big bird guy, had no idea. Did you know they have smart bird feeders now that have cameras? And AI will even identify the bird that's coming to eat at your feeder? I got him one for a closing gift. Had I not, if I would have tried to buy something and force something prior to closing, I would have never known that.
Yeah.
So I try and make them very personal. There's a belief out there about put your name on it, put your brand on it, so that way it's fully tax writable. You guys do you, right? I used to do the Cutco knives that had my name on them until I found out that some cultures see a gift of a knife as a sever a relationship. I don't want to sever a relationship with somebody I just helped buy a house, right? So there's many options, including do nothing. Closing gifts are a surprise and delight. They are not a requirement.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes the commission rate I gave you might have been your closing gift. Yeah, okay. And again, you decide. For your first closing, for those of you that have not yet had your first closing, I will come with you. Get on my calendar early, please, so that I can move things around if I need to be there with you. If I cannot be there with you, I will find somebody who will be. Okay? It is okay to tell the person who's closing, this is my first closing. And then they'll kind of like take over a little bit for you because they want you to say things. Okay? So I'll have you well prepped. I can promise you that. Okay? All right. Who can help you? Transaction coordinator. We have 2 in the office. One has the same last name I do currently. That is my daughter. She's been doing this for 7 years, 6 years, a long time. And she does a lot of the people here in the market center, some really high producing teams. She does not have a real estate license, which means that she cannot draft any legal documents for you. She cannot negotiate for you. And Damien would tell you that that's what he prefers. Another transaction coordinator is Trevor Collett. He is an agent here in the office, so he does have a license. If you feel that you're in a need where you would like to have somebody who can help you write contracts, go for it. Okay, I would tell you to interview both of them. They both have different pricing structures. They both have different levels of services. Okay, I personally cannot imagine running a transaction on my own. Jen sitting back there going, yeah, me neither. Right? How about you? How did you feel knowing that you had that second set of eyes?
Yeah, I would never do it without her.
Yeah.
I wrote that into mine. I was gonna say, just because I was so overwhelmed just even trying to fill out the contract my first time, just trying to get you to review it, and I thought, no, I absolutely would want a transaction coordinator. I was terrified.
Yeah, and even though she can't do the paperwork, right? Brandon, how nice is it in the morning to get that text message that says, hey, your inspection resolution's due today. Right? Because if it's not, you're out of contract.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, she was telling me a horror story the other night about somebody outside of her. She does work for other brokerages too, not very much, but a little bit. She fired her first client this week.
Oh. She also uploads all the paperwork into Command to make sure that we're in compliance. And I mean, when you guys ask me how I do, I'm like, I can figure it out, but I don't do that anyways.
Here's the thing, right? I understand the theory behind, I need to know it. But honestly, you know the important part, you know what contract pieces are there, right? You have that. How to upload a document in Command, is that really gonna change your skill set as a realtor? And it's gonna take you hours, and new builds are the worst.
Oh, yeah.
And it's $150 and she does it all. Did you guys all see Kevin's email from last week about documents need to be uploaded within 72 hours? I just wanted to double check myself. That includes your exclusive right to buys. So when you get that buyer agency or that listing agreement signed, even though you're not under contract yet, those portions need to be uploaded right away. Here's what's happening. This is what happens in practice. We don't even tell our transaction coordinators, or we don't upload anything in Command until we actually go under contract. And if you're doing that, you're in violation of the Colorado Real Estate Commission rules. So we all need to get better at it, right? I signed a buyer agency agreement. Hey, my buyer docs are out there at TC. Go ahead and upload them in Command. Okay, and then you want to make sure they do. Did I hear a question? Okay, I thought I heard something behind me. I thought I heard Casey, actually. Okay, what kind of questions do you guys have? Okay. This is actually timing out exactly how I wanted it to.
An hour to do this.
I like it. Okay, so,
I wonder if, is Casey still on too? Is
I
it-
can't tell. Casey dropped, okay.
Okay.
Here's what I wanna wonder though, do we even need to record this next section? I don't think we do.
No.
Let's stop the recording. I don't know how to do that.
And, okay.
Oh, no, if I hit end, I'll shut it all down and I don't wanna lose Lee.